Georgia World Congress Center is lying, and anybody who says that we are going to get a fair deal is lying. Thank you.
Mr. Cardinale.
Good afternoon. Matthew Charles Cardinale, news editor of AtlantaProgressiveNews.com and the vice treasurer of Fulton Atlanta Community Action Authority. Today, I want to talk about monetary policy in the United States of America, clearing up some common misinformation about what our money supply is, where it comes from, how and why it fluctuates, and then I want to make a proposal for how the city of Atlanta might be better able to leverage taxpayer dollars to meet the needs of our citizens with this information. The first thing I need to tell you is that money is not what most people think it is. In fact, to say that money is anything is in itself misleading. Most people know we don't have a gold standard, that money in the U.S. is not backed up by gold, but even that is missing the point. Money, fiat currency, is backed up simply by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. That's what gives money its value. Under the U.S. Constitution, the sole authority to print and issue currency belongs to the federal government. Now, we have delegated that role to private banks and public banks, although I'm getting ahead of myself, under the oversight of the Federal Reserve. The key to all of this is a policy and practice known as fractional reserve lending. Fractional reserve lending requires that banks have a certain cash reserve on deposit with the central bank, and then allows banks to literally conjure into existence a certain multiple of that deposit, often 10 times as much as that money. In fact, 90% of our national money supply consists of money that banks did not ever have, that they that they didn't take from somewhere, that they literally conjured into existence at the moment that a loan was created as an entry into a computer screen. This means first that all of the moralistic sayings that people shouldn't borrow money, that they should only spend what they have, well, if everyone followed it, there would be 90% less money in our economy, first of all. Second, it means that as people pay back their loans, the banks close the books on that money and it literally ceases to exist and disappears from our money supply in our economy, which is part of the reason why our economy is in the state that it's in. What has happened in the economic downturn is that banks have slowed or stopped making new loans, and as a result, trillions of dollars have disappeared from our money supply since 2008. It also means that the idea of federal budget deficits are a lie. The idea of the fiscal cliff is a lie. The borrowing limit is a lie. Sequestration, all of it is based on, it's missing the point, because the U.S. government does not have to borrow money from China or from anybody else. The federal government, under the Constitution, has the authority to create all the money we want. Some would raise the concern that inflation would occur if that happened, but we're a long way to go before our money supply is as large as it was before 2008. In fact, Abraham Lincoln won the Civil War in part because the North printed all the money it needed to win the war. Also, it means that because you see, banks create principal but not interest, yet expect borrowers to pay back the principal with interest. And economists can express as a mathematical formula how many people must default on their loans depending on how high the interest, how usurious the interest rates are. So anyone listening, if you stopped paying your credit cards, don't feel bad, because if it wasn't you, it would have had to be somebody else. Now, what does this have to do with the city of Atlanta? Well, if we understand how money works and how fractional reserve lending works, then we need to look at whether we, the city of Atlanta, the Atlanta Development Authority, or another entity that we could create or that we could partner with, could create a public bank. Just about anyone or any entity can create a bank. In fact, during the Great Depression, the state of North Dakota created a bank. The state of North Dakota put a deposit with the Central Reserve Bank and was able to make smart, non-speculative, non-usurious loans to farmers, families, and small businesses in North Dakota. As of research that I did a couple years ago, North Dakota is the only state that at that time was in the fiscal black as opposed to the fiscal red. I don't think that's a coincidence. Currently, the legislature of the state of California is conducting a study regarding the feasibility of starting a bank. That would be the State of California Bank. Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, a Democrat from Connecticut, has been proposing a federal national infrastructure bank for several years. What could the city of Atlanta do with a bank? We could fund infrastructure investments. We could help nonprofits develop meaningful affordable housing. Why have we not been able to meet our goals with respect to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and the Beltline? Because difficulties with financing. Well, this could be an answer. We could help finance solar panels. We could make smart investments with our own money. Not only our own money, but a multiplier of our own money, instead of borrowing that money and having to pay interest or having to issue a bond and having to pay on that. And it's the multiplier that's the key. In fact, a lot of people wondered why President Obama, during the bailout, why that money went to banks and not people, and it was with the understanding that the banks could multiply that money and people could not, with the hope that the banks would lend that money. Unfortunately, they haven't. Anyway, I know this may be a lot of new information to many of you, but it is all true. For the last few years, I have had many conversations with Ellen Brown, a renowned international economist who specializes in the issue of public banking. And she has been summoned to countries in Latin America who are interested in understanding how all of this works. I know this is thinking outside the box, but I would ask Chairwoman Moore and committee members to explore this option. As always, you can count on me as a resource for information. Councilwoman Adrian is right. Doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, is the definition of insanity. So let's do something different, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cardinale. Mr. Shakir.
Good afternoon.